Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Kiran Gupta from Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. Today we are going to discuss a module titled Women's Right to Guardianship and Custody of Children under paper Women and Law in subject Women Studies. The objectives of the present module are to discuss the legal issues which are who is a guardian of a minor and who is entitled to have custody of a minor and what is the status of women in the matters of guardianship and custodianship. The topic is relevant when the parents of the child are separated from each other. Friends, guardianship and custody are twin concepts, generally used interchangeably and presumed to be so in popular sense. Legally speaking, both are different concepts, both interrelated in the sphere of parental care and control over children. Guardianship is the legal right over the person and property of the minor during his or her minority, whereas custody refers to physical possession of the child and taking care of the child's interest by way of serving the needs of the child for proper growth. Guardianship generally refers to a permanent or you can say a long-term right, and custodianship refers to relatively a shorter term, that is personal care. A guardian is legally competent to deal with the property of the minor, whereas the custodian does not enjoy that right. This right has always a corresponding legal accountability also. In spite of these differences, guardianship and custodianship are in the nature of a sacred trust, a sacred duty. As long as parents are living together, the issue of guardianship and custodianship do not arise, and as there is no conflict between them, both of them will remain the guardian and the custodian of the property. But in case of separation of parents, the issues surface warranting legal and judicial interventions. In such cases, guardianship may vest with one person and custody of the child with another. The legal issues, who is a guardian of a minor and who is entitled to have custody of a minor, and what is the status of women in the matter of guardianship and custodianship forms the subject matter of the today's discussion. As far as the legislation relating to guardianship and custody is concerned, there are three main statutory law. The Indian Majority Act, which defines a minor as a person who has not completed the age of 18 years. It is a gender neutral definition. Both male as well as female on attaining the age of 18 is, as per this act, considered to be major. The other statute which is relevant is the Guardians and Wards Act of 1890. It is a secular law dealing with the powers and duties of guardians towards their wards and prescribes the procedure for appointment and removal of guardians for the person and property of minor wards in the absence of natural guardians. It governs all Indians irrespective of religious affiliation. The third statute, which is applicable only to Hindus and which codifies the Hindu law of guardianship and minority, is the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act 1956. It is a religious specific law applicable only to Hindus. It is in addition to and complementary to the Guardians and Wards Act, and as far as Hindus are concerned, both are to be read together. The Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act deals with certain aspects of guardianship and the rest is to be looked into from the Guardians and Wards Act. Now, coming to women's right to guardianship and custody. According to Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act 1956, a guardian can be of three categories, namely natural guardian, testamentary guardian, and court-appointed guardian. In the case of a legitimate boy or a legitimate unmarried girl, father is the first natural guardian and after him the mother. In all cases, the custody is generally with the mother till the child attains 5 years of age. The testamentary guardians are the guardians who are appointed by the natural guardians, and they can be guardian after the death of the natural guardian. The third kind of guardians are the guardians appointed by the court of law. The expression father and mother do not include stepfather and stepmother, but include adoptive father and adoptive mother. For an illegitimate boy or illegitimate unmarried girl, mother is the first natural guardian and after her the putative father. In case of a married minor girl, parents lose their guardianship and her husband becomes the natural guardian. It is quite explicit that in case of legitimate children, law accords primary position to father and secondary position to mother to act as natural guardian of a minor. However, the custodianship is acknowledged to be the prerogative of mother generally due to the emotional bondage of the mother with the child. The issue of legality of guardianship of mother to her daughter during the lifetime of father came before the Supreme Court in Jijabai versus Pathan Khan's case in 1970, in which the court observed that it is no doubt true that the father was alive and had fallen out with the mother, and he was not taking any interest in the affairs of the minor for 20 long years, and it was treated as good as if he was not existent so far as the minor was concerned. In the peculiar circumstances, the court held the mother could be considered as the natural guardian. The issue of constitutional validity of provision of Section 6, Clause A of the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act and the parallel provision Section 19, Clause B in Guardians and Wards Act relegating a secondary position to mother came before the Supreme Court as violation of Article 14 and 15 of the Constitution in Geeta Hariharan versus Reserve Bank of India. What happened in this case was that a couple wants to invest some money in the name of their son, who was a minor. The Reserve Bank of India offered certain bonds. The application, since the boy was minor, has to be signed by the guardian. So the form for purchasing the Reserve Bank bond was signed not by the father but by the mother with the consent of the father. The form was submitted to the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank returned the form to the parents, saying that it has to be signed by the father. Against that, a writ petition was filed in the Supreme Court to challenge the legal validity of the provision which says that the natural guardian of a child is father and after him mother. It was challenged that it is discriminatory as it violates Article 14 and 15 of the Constitution. The court in this case observed that the word after father on a cursory reading does give an impression that the mother can be considered as a natural guardian only after the lifetime of the father. It is a well settled principle of interpretation that if on one construction a given statute will become unconstitutional and on another construction it is constitutional, the court will prefer the latter on the ground that the Parliament would not have intended to ignore the fundamental right which prohibits gender discrimination. The court said the word after did not necessarily mean after the lifetime, but it means in the absence of. And where father is absent from the care of the minor, or wholly indifferent to the minor's interest, or the father is physically unable to take care because of his living away or due to his mental incapacity, or the father consents for mother to act as guardian, may be the various situation where mother will be considered as guardian even during the lifetime of father. We can say that the father is absent in such cases. The court said that the decision is only an expansion of the principles set out by the bench in Jijabai's case. The apex court also gave direction to the Reserve Bank of India to formulate suitable methodology to the effect that mother has to be recognized as equal guardian as father. In spite of the ruling given by the apex court in Geeta Hariharan's case, still it is an issue to ponder whether mother can be considered as a natural guardian in the absence of the various situations mentioned by the court in the case. Section 6A of the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act and 19B of Guardians and Wards Act are to be amended suitably so as to accord equal guardianship to father and mother, because even after the decision in Geeta Hariharan, the court has not specifically said that mother and father stand at the equal footing as far as guardianship, or you can say natural guardianship of the child, is concerned. However, it may be noted that mother is legally declared as custodian of her child, generally till the age of 5 years, and it is based on the legal presumption that welfare of a child below 5 years is most secure and assured in the lap of its mother, which has no substitute. This recognition enables her to seek custody of her child if she is deprived of it in case of any matrimonial litigation filed under the Hindu Marriage Act 1955. Only under exceptional situations, the custody of children cannot be given to mother considering the welfare of the children. The father or mother as natural guardian loses his or her status on conversion to another religion or on renunciation of the vow. The natural guardian has power to do all acts necessary or reasonable and proper for the benefit of the minor or for the realization, protection, or benefit of the minor's estate, but of he or she cannot bind the minor by a personal covenant. The natural guardian cannot mortgage or sell or gift or exchange or charge or lease for more than 5 years or lease for a period exceeding more than 1 year beyond the date of minor achieving majority the immovable property of the minor without court's permission. Any such alienation is voidable at the option of the minor within 3 years on attaining majority. Where the minor chooses to avoid the restriction, it is rendered void ab initio as if it had never taken place. Regarding the power of appointing a guardian under will, under classical Hindu law, only the father by his will could appoint a testamentary guardian. Testamentary guardian appointed by father became the guardian after the death of the father in the presence of the mother, and in that way the father was empowered to deprive the mother of her natural guardianship by making his own appointee. These injustices have been cured by the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act. First, mother has been declared a natural guardian, and a testamentary guardian can be appointed only and only when there is no natural guardian. And secondly, the mother can also appoint a guardian of her choice under her will. As long as mother is alive, the testamentary guardian appointed by her husband, that is the father of the child, will not become the guardian. Thus, husband cannot, after the enactment of the act, rob the mother of her right through his will. Further, in case of mother's death, leaving a will appointing any person to act as guardian, her appointee will become the guardian and her husband's appointment will become ineffective. The law provides that in case of illegitimate child, the mother can appoint a testamentary guardian, but the question whether such person can become guardian in the presence of putative father is not answered by the legislation. Section 6 says that mother is the guardian of the illegitimate child and after her father. But if mother appoints a testamentary guardian, can she do so even during the lifetime of the putative father of the illegitimate child. It is not clear in the statute. This needs legislative clarity because the law declares putative father as the natural guardian of the illegitimate child after mother. In the absence of such amendment, the question whether the mother of her illegitimate child can bar the putative father from becoming the natural guardian by her will becomes a subject of judicial interpretation. Gender parity requires removal of this lacuna existing against putative father. Section 13 of the Hindu Minority and Guardianship Act 1956 stipulates that whenever a court appoints a guardian for an infant or a minor, the principle of best interest of the child shall be the paramount consideration. The section further specifically mentions that no party can claim a right if it is violating the principle of best interest of the minor and is against the welfare of the child. The Guardians and Wards Act of 1890 under section 17 lays down that while appointing the guardian of a minor, the court has to keep in mind the welfare of the minor. For the same, the court shall consider factors such as age and sex of the child. The Supreme Court of India over times has also acknowledged the principle of best interest of the child to be the paramount consideration, especially on the matter related to custody or guardianship of a minor. The court has to determine the issue of custody and the guardianship of the minor considering the best interest of the child. Contents of the list of best interests of the child are not exhaustive in nature and they cannot be, neither vary from case to case, rather they vary from case to case as every child and his or her requirements are unique in themselves. Orders passed while deciding the custody of a child is interim in nature. If the court is of opinion that over the time the needs of the minor have changed and variation in the order would be in the interest of the child, the court may do so. In R. V. Srinath Prasad versus Nandamuri Jaikrishna, the Supreme Court in 2001 noted that the custody proceedings are sensitive matter and while deciding it, balance has to be maintained between the sentiments and approach of the parties. The guiding principle, however, remains the best interest of the child. A custody order passed, therefore, can never be final in nature. On multiple occasions, the Supreme Court has observed that with the change in the circumstances, the wards can seek for alteration in the order of custody proceedings. In Dhanvanti Joshi versus Madhav Unde, decided by the Supreme Court in 1998, the court, while applying the principle of res judicata in custody matter, observed that before changing the order, it must be established that the arrangement made by the previous order was not in the welfare of the child. Again, in Dr. Ashish Ranjan versus Dr. Anupama Tandon, the Supreme Court in 2010 opined that the mutual agreement with the parties could not be a ground for not admitting a fresh application for the custody of a minor. It is against the principle of welfare of the child. The court further noted that the doctrine of res judicata is not applicable in the case of custody of a minor. So, as far as custody of the minor is concerned, the preference has to be given and the only ground which is relevant is the best interest of the child, which supersedes any other legal right. In Dr. Veena Kapoor versus Shri Virendra Kumar, decided by the Supreme Court in 1988, the court made it clear that the paramount consideration is the welfare of the minor and not the legal rights of this or that particular party. In Surinder Kaur Sandhu versus Harbaksh Singh, decided in 1984 by the Supreme Court, while giving custody of minor boy to his mother, the court stipulated that laws cannot overlook the settled principle that welfare of child is of the paramount consideration. Again, in Elizabeth Deanshaw versus Arvind M. Deanshaw, the Supreme Court reiterated that the legal rights of the parties are not to be taken into consideration, but the case is to be decided on the sole and predominant criterion of what would best serve the interest and welfare of the child. There have been instances where the Supreme Court has awarded the custody of minor not to the father but to the grandparents, solely keeping the best interest of the child as the guiding principle. Like in Anjali Kapoor versus Rajiv Vejal, decided by the Supreme Court in 2009, the court took into consideration the fact that the child was living with the grandparents for a long time and the environment was conducive for his growth. Therefore, the custody of the child was handed over to the grandmother rather than the father. Similarly, in Sham Rao Maruti versus Deepak, decided by the Supreme Court in 2010, the court, stating the welfare of the child to be the paramount consideration and not the legal rights of the parties, the custody was given to the maternal grandfather and not to the father. Along with the best interest of the child, wishes of the child has to be taken into consideration while granting the custody of the child. Regard should be given to the child's opinion if he or she can understand his or her welfare. Like in Purvi Mukesh versus Mukesh Popatlal, the Supreme Court in 2017, beside other factors, also took into consideration the wishes of the minors and accordingly awarded custody to the mother. The court observed that the children of a particular age, 17 and 13 in this particular case, are better equipped mentally as well as psychologically to take a decision. The court noted that though the minors wanted to be with both the parents, but if asked to choose one, they preferred their mother. Thus, these preferences cannot be ignored by the court. The court further offered a word of caution that the tutored and pre-prepared statements of the minor are not to be considered as their wishes, and importance has to be given to their level of maturity and their surroundings, etc. The court has to be satisfied that the preference of the child is free from any undue influence. For a fair application of the principle, the position of both the parents should also be equal as far as possible, which can be enabled through community of property upon divorce. The law should not give preference to one parent over the other. If the interest of the child is to be in custody of the father and the child also wish to be with father, then custody can be given to the father. Otherwise, depending on the welfare and wish of the child, the custody can be given to the mother. If we look at the women's right to guardianship and custody under Muslim law, the custody of every child primarily belongs to the mother, while the guardianship of every legitimate child is ordinarily with the father. The mother as custodian is called Hadina, and under Hanafi law, her custody of female child terminates on attaining puberty and of male child on attaining 7 years of age. Thereafter, it is the right of the father to have custody. Under Shia law, mother continues to be the custodian till 7 years for female child and 2 years for male child, and thereafter father becomes the custodian. In case of death or legal incapacity of mother under Hanafi law, the maternal grandmother or great-grandmother, paternal grandmother or great-grandmother, sister or her daughter, maternal aunt and paternal aunt will become the custodian of the child in the above said order. Under Shia law, father and after him paternal grandfather takes custody of the child. Regarding guardianship, Muslim law speaks of 3 types of guardianship, namely guardian of person, guardian of property, and guardian of marriage. And mother is not entitled to act as a guardian for any purpose. Father, and in his absence, his male relatives will act as guardian. There is a great disparity in the position between father and mother as far as the guardianship of minor in Muslim law is concerned. However, it is open to father as a guardian of property to appoint by his will mother as a testamentary guardian or as an executor of will, and in such cases she can become the legal guardian of minor's property. In spite of these rules, court in many cases appointed or declared a mother as a guardian of her children's property under the Guardian and Wards Act 1890 if the welfare of the children warrants so. As far as women's right to guardianship and custody of minor children under other personal laws is concerned, unlike Hindus and Muslims, Christians and Parsis do not have a separate personal law governing guardianship and custody. During British period, with the exception of Hindus and Muslims, all other British Indian subjects, including Christians and Parsis, came to be governed by the rule of common law of the land in matters in which they do not have a specific personal law. Apart from codification of law of marriage, matrimonial remedies and succession, codification did not happen in matters of guardianship and custody. Under uncodified law, father is the natural guardian for his legitimate minor children, and after father, mother takes the guardianship. For illegitimate children, mother is the first natural guardian, and in her absence, putative father is the next guardian. A minor is considered to be a person who has not completed the age of 18 years as defined under the Indian Majority Act. The Guardianship and Wards Act of 1890 as general law continues to govern the situation for the purpose of appointment, removal and declaration of guardian in case of absence of natural guardians. For Christians and for those who marry under Special Marriage Act of 1954, Indian Divorce Act 1869, later amended as Divorce Act 2010, provides for matrimonial remedies, and Section 41 of said Act provides for custody of children in case of battle for custody, and the court, while determining the entitlement of the parties, will place main focus on the welfare of the child as the primary consideration. In case of matrimonial dispute filed under the Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 as amended in 1988, the issue of custody of children becomes an ancillary relief, and welfare of the children becomes the only consideration for the court in awarding custody. Friends, from the foregoing discussion today, it is to be noted that the status of women in the sphere of guardianship is generally relegated to a secondary position, and in matters of custody, she is acknowledged as a primary custodian. As infants are in need of strong emotional bondage, love and care for all-round development during nascent years, all personal laws, whether codified or uncodified, places mother at a higher pedestal. On the other hand, as the matters related to property of the minor need a higher degree of skill and prudence, it is placed in the exclusive domain of the guardian, declaring the father as the first natural guardian. This hierarchy within the family is no doubt to some extent tried to be balanced by the judiciary through interpretation with the scale of gender equality, leaving the burden of making it a law to the legislature. Now it is time to recognize both father and mother as legal guardian. Thank you.